This is Mercy Gunn, new to the world at 1 day old. The story is for her and all my daughters. It is also intended for all the daughters, moms, and grandmoms of the faith. It's written by me and my husband who's behind the camera, and we believe this is a crucial message. Inspired by the writing of the reformer John Knox, we intend this movie as both a word of encouragement to the faithful and as a blast of admonition against what we call the Monstrous Regiment of Women.
Strength and beauty are in his sanctuary. Strength and beauty are in his sanctuary. Give unto the Lord all ye kindred of the people. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. His courts. Oh, worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Fear before him all the earth. Declare his glory among the heathen, his wonders among all people. For the Lord is great, and greatly to be praised. Honor and majesty are before him. Declare his glory among the heathen, his wonders among all people. For the Lord is great, and greatly to be praised. The Lord is great, and greatly to be praised, greatly to be praised.
This story starts with a trip across the Atlantic to my husband's homeland of Scotland, where he'll meet with his brother to do a couple of interviews. We wanted to learn about the essay that lends its title to this movie and also find out more about its author, the famous 16th century reformer John Knox. The Gunn brothers begin by interviewing Rosalind Marshall, a world-renowned Knox scholar, to learn a bit more about him and his controversial tract.
This statue of John Knox, which I'm standing beside, is in St. Giles Cathedral, and of course Knox was minister of this church from 1559 until he died in 1572. The statue shows him in a typical outfit of the period, with his flat cap and his long beard and his gown lined with fur, and he's holding a Bible pointing to it because the Word of God was very important to the reformers in the mid-16th century. One of Knox's most famous publications is the first blast of the trumpet against the Monstrous Regiment of Women. Now, the very name is enough to enrage feminists everywhere, and most women as well, but there's a general misunderstanding about it. The word regiment doesn't mean part of an army in the 16th century, so it wasn't called the Monstrous Army of Women on the March. It was the first blast of the trumpet against the monstrous rule of women, in other words, women queens. And the reason Knox wrote it was that Mary I was ruling England. She was a fervent Roman Catholic, and she was persecuting Protestants. She had ordered the burning of various personal friends of Knox, and so he was very bitter about Mary I of England, and he was afraid that the same thing would happen in Scotland, which was being ruled by Mary of Guise, a French woman, as regent for her daughter Mary Queen of Scots. It's a lively essay. It's less than 50 pages long, And Knox goes on and on about how women have no right to be queens. Knox basically was saying that it was unnatural, monstrous in other words, for a woman to be put in charge of anything, let alone put in charge of a country. For him, the woman could never be the head of the household or anything else. And this was a commonly held view in the 16th century. Knox wasn't at all unusual. Everybody else would have agreed with him, and that meant women would have agreed with him as well.
And this is where I agree with Knox. The unchanged, infallible Bible unites Christians of today with those of years past. And as we form our opinions of womanhood, this is where we must go. The Bible in no way teaches a negative view of women. God says that He created women as valuable, wonderfully made, distinctly different from men, and as a comparable helper to man. The Bible is full of wonderful examples of womanhood, from Titus 2, Proverbs 31, Esther, Ruth, Sarah, Abigail, Phoebe. Even wisdom is pictorially described as a woman, the church likewise described as the bride of Christ. Women are often set as examples of faithfulness and diligence in parables, and were a part of the closest group in fellowship with Christ during His earthly ministry. There is no cookie-cutter approach to womanhood in the Bible. Some were converted prostitutes, one heroically saved God's people from persecution, and another even slammed a tent peg through someone's head. Others show up as true villains, such as the betraying Delilah and the appalling Jezebel. If the women in the Bible are one thing, it would be this, that they are real.
I think you have to understand how they saw the Bible. For people like Knox, their ministry was Christocentric. The core of their ministry was Christ crucified. So I think people like Knox would find the accusation that their ministry is un-Christ-like actually quite surprising. Knox firmly believed in the Bible as a rule in the church and in life. The Bible was a rule in terms of morality, in terms of law, in civil society. And for Knox, that meant the Bible in its entirety. One thing he is known for is his views on women, which is something that Knox is often, I think, unfairly negatively critiqued for. People's, in fact, in some ways misreading of the Monstrous Regiment has overshadowed other aspects of Knox's work and Knox's thinking, in which he explicitly recognises the contribution of godly women. One noticeable thing is that the bulk of Knox's surviving letters are to women. And there is no doubt from Knox's writing that Knox recognised the significance of these godly women and the part they played in his ministry. I think Knox's legacy should be what he stood for. It should be sola scriptura. It should be preaching the doctrine of Christ crucified. It should be the primacy of the Bible as a rule of faith and life.
Many misunderstood Knox's essay because they are without his biblical understanding on faith and life issues. So when we approach today's problems, we wish to borrow his biblical perspective and apply his blast against those who rule in the wake of his monstrous queen. This group, we shall see, far surpasses the queen's iniquities in both kind and degree. We know some of our views will not be popular. In fact, you can see how much the bold Knox is appreciated in his own country. Look here, next to his old church, underneath parking spot 23. This is the grave of the reformer John Knox. Shortly after returning home, Colin went to an event to talk with a leading feminist. She was speaking at a bookshop in Austin, Texas.
And you are a feminist.
I am.
And what is a feminist?
Feminist is someone who believes in equality, human rights, and democracy.
Now, if someone wasn't a feminist, what is the antithesis of what you stated?
The antithesis of feminist is someone who believes in hierarchy and the inherent authority of some over others.
This is a good answer. Notice that women are not even mentioned. This is a foundational description of what is behind feminism: egalitarianism. This is the fuel of the feminist fire. Simply put, feminism is egalitarianism applied to gender. Christians can't be egalitarian. We believe in hierarchy and inherent authority. The Bible says the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man. We do believe in some kinds of equality, such as in worth and dignity, but this sort of equality should not be confused with sameness. The problem with egalitarianism is that it extends equality beyond God's created order and forces equality in any and every circumstance, no matter how unnatural, unrealistic, or harmful the consequences may be. We wanted to talk to the other side, and there's no more prominent opponent of feminism in America than this person we are about to meet. She has researched feminism extensively. She met and debated most of the leading feminists and tirelessly fought to prevent feminist legislation from taking hold in the U.S. Phyllis Schlafly.
The problem with feminism, I think the principal problem, is the cultivation of an attitude of victimization. Feminism tries to make women believe they are victims of an oppressive, male-dominated, patriarchal society. And they really wake up in the morning with a chip on their shoulder. The feminist movement set out to make the role of full-time wife and mother or full-time homemaker economically impossible and socially disdained, so that you will find that they look down upon her. They said, if you're not getting wages of your own, you don't have any life. You should be out there in the workforce, taking orders from a boss instead of from your husband. And of course, as we all know, the world is full of tedious, tiresome jobs out there in the workforce. And it is really easier to get along with most husbands than it is with a boss. But at any rate, they made the housewife feel unhappy, victimized, searching for some other life, and made her feel that the expectation that society had that a mother should look after her own child was an example of the oppression of women.
Who suffers at the hands of today's monstrous regiment? It's the housewife, the mother, the homekeeper, the woman who chooses to live a life not in accord with feminist dictates. Not only do they attack women, they attack the very ordinance that God designed to protect women, that is, marriage.
The feminists really are anti-marriage. In fact, some of them have been very outspoken and above board in saying that they want to destroy the institution of marriage, which they look upon as a patriarchal institution.
One such feminist thinker was Simone de Beauvoir.
She described marriage as an obscene bourgeois institution.
A parasite sucking out the living strength of another organism. The housewife's labor does not even tend towards the creation of anything durable. Women's work within the home is not directly useful to society, produces nothing. The housewife is subordinate, secondary, parasitic. It is for their common welfare that the situation must be altered by prohibiting marriage as a career for women.
Again, it was with Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, in 1963. And again, it painted the plight of the suburban housewife.
Housewives are mindless and thing-hungry, not people. Housework is peculiarly suited to the capacities of feeble-minded girls. It arrests their development at an infantile level, short of personal identity, with an inevitable weak core of self. Housewives are in as much danger as the millions who walk to their own death in the concentration camps.
To say that being a housewife likens you to a concentration camp victim is just an incredible insult. It also reflects a complete lack of knowledge of what really goes on in a home. She was a well-known member of the Communist Party in America. That is not told in any of her obituaries. It's not in the feminist histories of Betty Friedan. It's not in her biographies, but it's there in her own writings. She really liked Engels and Marx and believed in their vision of getting rid of the patriarchal family unit. We don't want the father in charge earning the bread and the mom staying at home with the kids. We want it flipped. We want moms to be able to go out in the workforce. In fact, we'd rather have both parents gone and the children in the hands of the state. And again, that just traces right back to Marxism and socialism. It's far better for the state to run everything and decide how our lives will be than for individual families to have that autonomy. Karl Marx and his associates at the time, Friedrich Engels in particular, I'm thinking of, knew from personal experience that you cannot bring a culture into subjection, you cannot bring a nation under communism and Marxism until you destroy the Christian family with the father at the head. You can't have an all-equal society until you have forced everybody into some niche in the job field and the children into the state-run schools, because you've got to get the minds of the next generation.
The whole idea of universal daycare, which feminists are always fighting for, to have the government set up daycare, is really a socialist idea. It was the way all socialist systems provided daycare. And this is going to be paid for by the people who don't have any use for the daycare, because they involve taxing the one-income family in order to give a benefit to the two-income family.
In 1950, 2 out of 3 American families looked like this: breadwinning dad, children, stay-at-home mom. Feminists agitated the workplace with tales of glass ceilings and pay gaps. Employers were told to adopt hiring quotas, offer free daycare, and generous pregnancy leave. The feminists then went to the legislature and courts and asked for force to back up their ideology. They needed to help the most downtrodden member of society. That's right, the feminists. Today, only 1 in 6 families follows the traditional model. Equal pay laws ended the possibility of a family wage. The Christian family is forced through redistribution to subsidize a host of anti-family practices. It is now much harder for women not to work. Many women realize, and often too late, that if feminism has accomplished anything for them, it is not choice. We don't have to look too far to find an example of someone who wants us all to live out her own feminist dogmas.
I do not believe that Hillary Clinton will be elected president. She is not a likable woman, and I just don't think people want to elect somebody who fundamentally is not likable. She's angry about lots of things, and that isn't the kind of person we want to lead this country.
Her face looks harsh. She seems mad at everything, and is not passionate about her. I mean, she is passionate about her anger, but she's always angry about something.
She is the feminist par excellence, really. She always has worked. She had 1 child. She has absolutely no sympathy for the homemaker. In fact, at one time when she was criticized, she said, well, what am I supposed to do? Stay home and bake cookies?
The Bible makes it very clear that a woman is not to rule over a man. And it doesn't just say in the church, it says a woman is not to rule over a man. In Isaiah, it says even that it's a curse when we have women and children ruling over us. And so we need to be really cautious about embracing that. Deborah is the example that women hold up as to where the Bible says, oh, a woman can hold political office. What about Deborah? But Deborah was not doing it because that was the best choice or because it was even a goal that she pursued herself. She was placed in that position because she was a wise and godly woman, and there were no men who would step up into the leadership. Every man was doing what was right in his own eyes, and it was a sad day when it had to be Deborah doing it. It's not something a woman should be pursuing as her goal in life.
The bottom line is God created men for leadership. And he clearly tells us in his word that when women are in leadership, it's a sign of a curse on a nation. He's basically telling people, you've messed up so badly and you've strayed so far from my law that I'm going to put children and women over top of you, that you are only fit to be ruled by women and children. Now that doesn't mean women are dummies and women aren't capable of leadership in their own sphere. I lead my children every day with the things that we do in our home. There are areas where I am a leader, but I was not created by God to lead a country.
Today in America, 7.8 million more women vote than men. America now falls under the indictment of this verse. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. The men of the suffrage era were willing to abdicate their dominion role to the extent that they were ready to give up half of their electoral power to women. Many women understood this at that time and opposed female suffrage. The 19th Amendment can be seen as the point in American history when the father ceased to sit in the gates as a representative of his family's interests. Individualism and self-interest would now be the principal approach to the ballot box. Security, protection, and provision, once the priorities of the father, soon passed to a paternalistic state, which from that point on has continued to expand radically far beyond its constitutional bounds. But this is not the full story. The biggest change we have seen is in the hearts and minds of women. Most of them now aspire to the workforce rather than marriage. It is the expected path for young girls. Which young girl hasn't been asked, what are you going to be when you grow up? Few would expect or accept the answer of housewife or mother.
The fact is that if you ask people, you will get small numbers who will identify themselves as feminists. And yet, many of the women who would say, oh, I'm not a feminist, they're living the life that feminists said they should live.
We learned that an important writer was speaking nearby on the subject of women in work. Colin went along to ask some questions.
I wanted to encourage young women to listen to their inner voices as they choose their path in life, not only to listen to what culture and society says they should do, but rather to follow a path dictated by what they enjoy the most, what they derive the most satisfaction from.
If I listen to my inner voice, it's really difficult. You've got your parents telling you what you should do, your husband, your kids, just society.
It's hard to pay off a student loan with your inner voice. Sometimes your inner desire may be totally insane and crazy, and I don't know. I don't know if it's 100% right all the time, but it's mostly right.
I basically believe that human nature is fundamentally good, and that you can trust it if you encourage it to bring out what's inside.
Listening to your inner voice and believing that human nature is fundamentally good might be seen as good practical philosophy, but from a Christian perspective we must reject both. As for listening to your inner voice, the Bible says, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, and that there is a way that seems right to man, but the heart is deceitful above all things. Also, human nature is not fundamentally good. In fact, the Bible said that none is righteous, and that the imagination of a man's heart is evil from his youth.
If you're listening to your own inner voice, then you're setting the law, you're setting your parameter, and you're setting your moral character. And I don't think that I set a very high moral character. I think the Lord holds me up to a much higher standard than I hold myself to.
Our friend Kathleen Smith is a former student at SMU where she was training to join the ministry.
My husband felt a call to go into the ministry. He left his lucrative law practice. We moved, sold everything we could, and moved into the dorm and began studies at Perkins School of Theology. The feminism at Perkins and at SMU was very open and very blatant. I had pastors tell me I needed to be in the ministry as opposed to being at home. And there was a call. They really did want women in the ministry in this denomination at that time. And eventually I felt like maybe I was supposed to do that, and I had to be willing to do that. And so I began studies. When I started classes, I was doing very well. I had top grades, and I was learning a lot, but I was miserable. Our children were miserable. My husband was miserable. I cried all the time, and I just constantly was asking, what am I doing? What am I doing? And one day I sat out on the bench outside of Perkins Chapel, and I was crying, and people were walking by, and I didn't care. And one of my dear friends came and sat next to me, and she hugged me, and then she began to tell me that I needed to stop this, that if I was a Christian and I was called to serve, that I had to give up my husband and I had to give up my children. And I knew she was wrong. But I went home and I asked my husband, what is it I'm supposed to do? Am I supposed to leave you? And he said, no, God does not call us to a conflicting service. And I was released and I was free, and I could believe the Bible again because it was true. And I am so delighted to be home and to be a homemaker and a homekeeper. We have 5 wonderful children, 3 of which would not be here had the Lord not delivered us.
We should repent of forcing women into the workplace and pulpits, but one of our most blatant sins is in our willingness to put women in harm's way. We talked to our friend, a former military cadet. Here's her experience. She asked to remain anonymous in this interview.
The hardest part was denying my true self. Not just on, I'm not allowed to wear a pink t-shirt to formation, or something like that. I'm saying you had to suppress who God made you to be in order to thrive there. Survive. Forget thrive. In order to survive, you had to suppress who God made you to be. You have to blend in to fit in. You're going to have to pick up masculine traits. It's inevitable if you want to succeed. The first day they encouraged women to cut their hair off. It wasn't mandatory any longer, but they encouraged women to cut their hair off, to a minimum their earlobes, some even more so, because the men had to shave their head. The women should cut their hair at least. Thank God they didn't ask us to shave our heads, but it was more so that the men would accept us. We had to keep up with the men on the daily routines, jogging and push-ups and all that other physical training, jumping over walls. But when it came to the tests, they had a variance for women to it's called gender norming. And, if a man was required to do 10 pull-ups, a woman was required to do 3. So the men weren't too happy with that, with the gender norming. They thought that why are they here if they cannot pull up their own body weight to the same amount, that we can. Worst case, some point in time during the training, they would have a crying fit. We'd get yelled at, spat on. There's one guy who just loved to spit on people, And that part of the reason for that was to give you nerves of steel, so that under pressure you could perform. Some who were sexually assaulted, it was basically like attack on their soul. That's the best way I can describe it. And some just never fully recovered from that at all. Or if they did recover, it was just horrible. The environment for some was just, it was damaging, really.
Not only have mixed-gendered troops brought sexualization to the military, but through the egalitarian lies about physical ability, we now have seriously deficient troops where we need at least. The question is, could women in the military cost lives?
It's possible. I would say it depends on the situation. It depends on the amount of training. It depends on what's physically being required. It is possible that they can cause lives, in my opinion.
Death is a significant outcome of feminism, but if we are to evaluate feminism against other worldviews, we will find that it comes with an unparalleled death toll.
Abortion doesn't make me happy. I don't think anybody's like, woohoo, that was great, but I think that it has to be an option. It has to be an option, or this, you walk around, like today, I was saw these 2 homeless guys walking down the street, and I'm like, I wonder if anybody's ever going to do an ad for abortion, just having 2 guys that were totally probably mistreated and mishandled as children, probably unwanted, who end up on the streets later in life, schizophrenic, drunk, crazy, whatever. And I thought, wow, what an inappropriate thought. But then I also thought, some people aren't wanted.
I definitely think it's our responsibility as males to step up for what's right. You know what I'm saying? And it's not right for like this, or this here with this dead baby on a picture, Christian fascism, I think that's what's driving these people is, the fear of the hell maybe, and I don't know, I'm afraid to see what their world would look like.
You're dealing with something you can't, it has nothing to do with you.
It's a cluster of cells, though. We're not this. Dude, I'm sorry, but this is insanity, dude.
That's not even real. You got that off it's like the internet. You made that up.
But on the real,
have you seen that? Have you seen that? Tell me that you've seen that. I want to know that you personally seen it. Have you? Have you? Say that you have.
This
okay.
Of a real baby.
Where did you get it from?
For the pro-life movement. This ideology.
It's not your baby, though, right?
Oh, I hope not. No.
Exactly. You hope not. I hope
Poor
not.
child.
I hope not too.
Hey, but on the real.
That's awesome. That's so fantastic.
Of abortions, or it's within the first 3 months. We're talking about a cluster of cells. We're not talking about even that. You know what I'm saying? This is insanity.
And heartbeats and brain waves.
Yeah, you have both of those seemingly, but you don't appear to be human.
I'm basically here just because I wanted to support anything that's related to pro-choice, because I feel very, very, very strongly and very passionately about every woman has a right to choose. And I really think thinking otherwise is pretty unrealistic, uneducated, and judgmental.
Do you think that of those guys over there?
I think they're completely mentally insane.
What would you? Okay, without if you were to be as kind as you could be,
I would say first of all, the posters they're holding are completely unrealistic of what actually happens. And I'm actually a physician, and I can say that 95% that's illegal to terminate a pregnancy at that stage, and 95% of the time that is not at all what takes place. It's a very humane, normal medical procedure.
I've always believed that women have a right to their body and a choice, and I was blessed that I got pregnant when I wanted to, and again when I wanted to, but a lot of women have other circumstances that they shouldn't be forced into a situation that could possibly make them bad mothers, resent their children, resent themselves, not do as well in life. And it ultimately isn't just about life and death, it's about quality of life. And if you can't offer quality life, life itself it's not enough. I understand that it is, the idea of abortion is very hard, killing a child, and to me, the minute I became pregnant, my child became my child. But on behalf of other women, it's just a bad circumstance sometimes, and they're men. They can't understand. If you notice, all of the protesters out here are men.
The number of children killed through abortion in the U.S. since Roe v. Wade is now equal to the population of the whole of Texas, together with New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, Idaho, Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. This is an unparalleled Holocaust. That's a September 11th attack every day in America. Yet it's not Al-Qaeda that's attacking. It's the Monstrous Regiment. To find out more, we went to talk to a former industry insider, former abortion clinic owner, Carol Everett.
First, I worked for a man who owned 4 clinics, but he would not share the money I was making with me. So I took his best doctor, because it's not if, it's when you kill a woman, you need a doctor to help you in the cover-up. The first month we did 45 abortions. The last month we did 545 abortions. Why do I remember those numbers? I worked on a straight commission. $25 for each abortion. Doesn't seem like a lot of money until you multiply 545 and find that my last month's income was $13,625. But that was not enough. I wanted to be a millionaire. And now I saw a way to be a millionaire. At $25 each, we only needed to do 40,000 abortions a year to provide my $1 million income. You see, an abortion clinic can open, pay for itself in the first month, and be a profit center in the second month. We went to schools. We sold abortions to teens. Our goal was 3 to 5 abortions between the ages of 13 and 18 for every girl. I did hold the hand of one young woman while she had her 9th abortion. Yet none of that satisfied.
Carol became a Christian and now runs the Heidi Group, informing people about the truth of groups like Planned Parenthood. We asked Carol about the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger.
Margaret Sanger was the founder of Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger was a bisexual and deviant in many ways. Margaret Sanger considered minorities and the Jewish race the weeds of society that she wanted to eliminate. And she originally strategically placed birth control clinics in African American areas. And of course, that is why the African American numbers are so great in the abortion statistics. Planned Parenthood provides more abortions than any other organization in the United States. And I believe that they facilitate that network of abortion clinics through family planning with contraceptive use to teenagers. For instance, when I was in the abortion business, I knew if I could go into a school that the pregnancy rate would increase by 50%. I knew if I could get a girl sexually active that she would have 3 to 5 abortions between the ages of 13 and 18, and that was actually our goal.
We see Planned Parenthood doing this in our own neighborhood. Every year they run an event aimed at local children.
They're not here to do anything kind and nice and sweet to these children. They're here to subvert them, to subject them to information that they're not emotionally ready for, and to break down their innocence and their ability to resist being involved in sexual activity. They're using a book that's called It's Perfectly Normal, and it has over 80 pictures of nude characters engaged in sexual activity.
We believe that we're giving kids information that they may need right now, but we're pretty sure they're going to need it later.
Okay.
Which is why we give out the now and later candies. I don't know if you know about that. And each room has a theme, by the way. We have one room up there with tents in it.
Okay.
It has a camping theme. We have another room that has some mattresses on the floor. They're having a slumber party. That's the 5th grade girls, which is real appropriate for that age.
Sure.
And in the 5th and 6th grade, it's back to intercourse. But now someone comes in and gets them to laugh about their parents, because if they laugh about their parents, they will not go home and tell their parents what they talked about. They're part of the problem. You talk to them about birth control and how you can give them birth control pills, and when they come into your clinic, our clinic gave them a low-dose birth control pill that we knew they would get pregnant on. How did we do that? We prescribed a birth control pill that in order to provide any level of protection had to be taken accurately at the same time every day, for we knew one thing about teenagers. They don't do anything at the same time every day, and we could look at the statistics and tell that any time she went on any method of birth control, that sexual activity went from 0 once a week to 5 to 7 times a week. The pill would not work, and we could accomplish our agenda of the 3 to 5 abortions between the ages of 13 and 18.
We asked the Planned Parenthood director what she thought of abstinence-only education.
And so those kids are getting fear-based, abstinence only till marriage messages.
We agree, it is fear-based. It should be. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and Planned Parenthood is harmful because it removes the fear of God, together with the fear of consequences. Our dear friend Dana was one who took to heart some of the feminist lies of Planned Parenthood. Here's her story.
Being in college with the very feministic mind that I'm going to have a career and a woman has choices and we can do all that we want to do. That same mindset comes into play when I get into a relationship with a young man and become sexually active in that, and then I get pregnant. And I go to some of the girls that I'm in school with, and never once would they say, "You just need to keep this baby." It was, "Oh, you just need to go get an abortion." You're going to be a doctor. You can't have a baby. You already have 2 boys to take care of. Just go down and get an abortion. It's going to be okay. You're going to be a doctor. And I remember it just resonating in my mind that that's right. I've got to become this doctor. I've got to become successful, and this baby, or fetus, as they'd like to say, is going to be a hindrance. Apparently, our mothers and fathers have raised us to get careers, and we better do it. And if we have anything that hinders us from getting that, we have to get rid of the hindrance. I remember being in the operating room and then just began crying and weeping and very uncontrollable. And I remember the nurse being very rude and saying, you need to get control of yourself. Very, very harsh. And I remember it being over with and going home and thinking, what have I done? And even though I wasn't a Christian yet, I knew that I had done something terribly, terribly wrong. And they will convince you every which way that this is your free right, this is your choice. It's it's a wonderful to be able to make a choice to do this kind of thing. But they're not the ones that have to live with it in the end, especially when the realization comes that it was actually a living child. And I remember being in college. This is how I found out that it was a baby that was fully formed. Is I walk into my class, and here we're going to study the gestational periods of fetuses, and I'm like, oh, we know all about that. And they show a baby at 6 to 8 weeks on the screen up above, and I just was in shock. I thought, that is what my baby was, fully formed: head, arms, legs, eyes, little fingers, little toes. And I just broke down. I just ran out and became furious that I had been lied to. And it's the deception. You trust people in authority. It makes me very sad, and then it also makes me very angry, because the sad part comes from the years that I spent not pouring myself into my husband and my marriage, into my children. And then it makes me angry because I felt like I was lied to, or I wasn't given the whole truth. And I think for anybody to make an educated decision about anything, they need truth revealed to them. They need both sides so that they can make an educated decision about what is best for them.
Dana was lied to, and like many women, acted against her conscience at the direction of others. One other deception of the feminist sexual revolution has led to the literal uncovering of American women.
Barbie doll, of course, was the first vestige of this. She was based on a sex toy that the founder of the company found in Germany and decided to clean up its act and make it the Barbie doll in America. Now they have the Bratz, and Barbie has been relegated to the 3 to 7-year-old set. The Bratz are basically trampy little dolls for girls to play with and emulate. They're this huge booming business. I have no idea why parents buy this for their kids other than the whining of the kids due to the marketing.
And on this one issue, you probably could get some support from feminists, because some of them are very concerned about that. They think that it's a victimization of women. Well, they're not in much of a position to make that argument, because I think they've victimized women terribly by encouraging them to become sexually promiscuous as they did. And on that issue, when teachers try and change the dress of some of these girls in junior high and in high school, and teachers call it fighting the whore wars. They're trying to get them not to dress like streetwalkers. And the girls will say, well, this is what we learned from feminism. We can be as raunchy as boys. We can be just like guys. And this was one of the terrible results of feminist teaching. And they say, we just want to act like the guys. We want to be like the guys. That is the worst thing that the feminist movement ever did, was to convince several generations of women now that what guys do is what they want to do.
When my daughters walk into a room, I want them to communicate virginity. I want them to communicate purity and loveliness. And if they dress or talk or carry themselves like they're impure, then that's what they're communicating. And I see that in the world today. I see that in Christian young women today. I see young women that, although they may be pure, physically pure, they may be virgins, they don't look like it. And so what that does is it lies about God. If they're Christians and they're dressing as though they're someone else, then they're lying about God. If a woman wears maternity clothes, she shouldn't be surprised when people think she's pregnant. If you wear a uniform that says you're a police officer, you shouldn't be surprised if people think you're a police officer. So if a woman dresses as though she's loose, she shouldn't be surprised if that's what people think of her character. And as a Christian, that's a real problem, because what we're doing is lying about the nature of God, and we're communicating something we're not.
As women, we need to see whether we are conforming to the pattern of this world or being transformed by the renewing of our minds. Maybe feminism told you that children were a burden. For the sake of some money, a career, or even free time, you missed out on some, maybe even all of the children you could have had. Maybe feminism taught you egalitarianism. You couldn't submit to a hierarchy, so you tried to usurp your husband's authority or control him. You belittled him, you certainly wouldn't submit to him. Maybe feminism taught you that your inner voice should guide you in your decision to leave your home. For a few dollars, you exchanged life in a private sanctuary for a lifetime under fluorescent lights in a corporate environment. Maybe feminism left you with a fearless sexual ethic that objectified you and left you feeling used. Feminism has brought a storm to the lives of American women, and it's women who have been left out in the rain. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but the good news is this. Jesus says, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." And this is why we can now sing a new song.
Oh, sing a new song to the Lord, for wonders He has done, for wonders He has done.
Return to your home. If you are wise, you will build up your own house. If you are foolish, you will pull it down with your own hands. The home can be your sanctuary, a wonderful place of service, peace, happiness, and blessing. Return to your husband. Bring him down from the roof. Men are sinners too, but they can be a great blessing to you if you let them. Don't believe the way that men are represented. The TV schlep, the stereotypical buffoon who can't do anything. The media has been preaching man-hating feminism to us for years. It's time to do something about it. Next, we return to children.
Are you nuts?
Oh, again, and
get a TV or...
Oh, you poor thing. I'm sure glad I'm not in your shoes.
Are you a daycare?
Do you know what's causing that?
Oh dear, there they go again. And aren't they a drain on the rest of us?
I've tried to be gracious but quick to tell them I couldn't do this on my own strength either. It's not something that necessarily always comes easily, but it is a joy, and God has sanctified me through raising these children and from embracing this gift that I so badly wanted. If you're positive about it and express to them your gratitude for God blessing you in this way, then usually they are quick to accept that.
God calls children a reward and a blessing, and our culture calls them a burden. Don't have too many, because you can't afford it. You won't have time for yourself, and they're too expensive. They have you'll have more fun with them if you don't have so many. All these reasons why we shouldn't have too many children. But God calls them a blessing. He calls them a reward. He calls them arrows in the hand of a warrior. And I believe that's exactly what they are. We're called to raise up godly seed for His glory.
When we researched 10 of the leading feminists in America, we came up with a combined total of 7 children. The total between our 10 commentators is an amazing 60 children. As the Monstrous Regiment seeks empowerment, true influence is given to the faithful wife and mother who obeys the Lord. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
If we as women go into the Word and we say, well, I'll take this and I like this part, and I'll take that because I like that part, but That Titus 2 stuff, I don't like that. I'm not having that. That's not me. Me, I was made for leadership, so I can ignore that part. That's chaos. That's inviting horrible cultural suicide, because we're basically saying, I know better than God. God didn't know what he was doing when he made Adam and Eve. He didn't have any idea what he was doing when he set all these rules for women about being homemakers and serving their husbands, and he just really messed things up. So I'm here to fix it.
When we embrace the role that he has given us to fulfill, then we can find joy, we can find peace, we can find fulfillment in ways that we never even dreamed of, and we will have something that will stay with us for eternity.
We are made so wonderfully and beautifully, and God has gifted us to do things that men can never do, and not do the way that we do them. A man cannot be a mother. A man cannot be a wife. Some men are not very good homemakers. But what you find joy in will be the way that God created you.
I might not look to a feminist like a liberated woman, but freedom hasn't been won for me by the ballot box, or a protest, or a convention. True freedom means being free from the bondage of sin, free from the curse, freedom from condemnation, and freedom from feminism. I am free to be a woman, wife, mother, and homemaker with all the blessings God intended that to have. My daughters will know this truth too, and they, like me, will aspire to the highest calling of a wife and mother, whose worth is found far above rubies or worldly gain. As women, we might find that when we look for liberation, it quite surprisingly comes to us through a man, who is also truly God. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed.
Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth up also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, and buyeth it with the fruit of her hands. She planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of